My sister's grades were terrifyingly strange. When I scored 600, she scored 610. When I fought my way to 610, she instantly jumped to 620. No matter how hard I pushed, she stayed exactly 10 points above me. But the moment I skipped one exam, her grades collapsed on the spot. That was when I knew. Her scores were tied to mine. And from that discovery, a crazy plan was born in my mind. If I scored over 740 on the college entrance exam, what would happen to her? On the eve of the exam, I lived like an ascetic monk, while my sister chased pleasure without fear. With me as her safety net, she became arrogant beyond belief. She even gave up on studying entirely, partying with friends like the exam meant nothing. Every time she got caught, she looked completely annoyed. Are you guys done bothering me? Don't worry. The top spot is definitely mine, and I didn't disappoint her. In every mock exam, I steadily pushed her onto the throne of first place. I wanted her to rot in a dream of fake glory, while I secretly crept closer and closer to 741 points. The final semester of senior year was like a blunt knife, slicing through my nerves bit by bit. Waking up at 5 a.m. every day, sleeping at midnight. In between, except for eating and the bathroom, I spent every second grinding through problems. I locked myself in that small room where sunlight never reached, operating with the precision of a machine that never stops. My sister's room was right next door. Laughter from her video calls with friends echoed through, or the exaggerated screams from the shows she watched. Sometimes she would intentionally turn the volume up, as if boasting about how reckless she could be. I had long since learned to block out all the noise. Only one voice looped in my head. The number 741 was like a nail driven into my heart. Whenever I felt like giving up, I would press down on it hard. The pain kept me awake. In March, Shen Qinghan started coming in and out of my room frequently. At first, I didn't care, thinking she was just looking for something. Later, I realized something was wrong. The way she looked at me had changed. It was full of scrutiny and probing. Once, while I was working on the final math problem, she pushed the door open, stood behind me, and stared at my scratch paper for a long time. Brother, why have you been working so hard lately? It's okay. The exam is coming up. How could I not work hard? But you've never pushed yourself this hard before. My heart skipped a beat, but my expression remained calm. I sighed on purpose, put down my pen, and pretended to be exhausted. It's all because of Mom and Dad. They said if I don't get into a top-tier university, they'll cut off my allowance. What choice do I have? Shen Qinghan's expression relaxed, a hint of mockery even appearing at the corner of her mouth. You? A 985 university. Don't tire yourself out. Anyway, the top spot will be mine in the end. She turned around, not forgetting to twist the knife one last time. I watched her walk away. Once the door closed, a slight smile played on my lips. Very good. Keep looking down on me. The more you despise me, the safer I am. I played my cards carefully. In every mock exam, I deliberately controlled my score. I didn't let myself stand out too much, keeping myself within the top 5 of the grade. Not too conspicuous, yet not enough to make her suspicious. My real trump card, I kept hidden in my heart. The hardest problem types, the most cunning techniques, I only practiced them alone in the dead of night. Once finished, I tore the scratch paper to shreds, flushed them down the toilet, leaving not a single trace. One night, while I was grinding through competition problems, I suddenly heard noise in the living room. It was my mother and Shen Qinghan talking. I quietly opened the door a crack to eavesdrop. Xiao Xiao, has your brother been pushing too hard lately? I see him locking himself in his room every day. He doesn't even come out to eat. Shen Qinghan gave a dismissive laugh. Mom, what are you worried about? No matter how hard he tries, how far can he actually go? Regardless of what he scores, I'll always be 10 points higher. Right, my daughter is the smart one. Hearing these words, I clenched my fists, nails digging into my skin. But on the surface, I remained calm, gently closed the door, and continued studying. One night in April, I was grinding practice problems in my room as usual. Suddenly, I heard a faint sound outside the door. I pricked up my ears to listen. Footsteps. Very light, as if afraid of being caught. Then came the sound of the doorknob turning. Extremely slow. I understood instantly. She was spying on me. I didn't look back, continuing to pretend I was focused on the problems. But in reality, I had already swapped the paper in my hand for a basic practice sheet. The truly advanced materials had long been locked in the drawer. In the deepest corner, the door opened a tiny crack. I caught a glimpse of half of Shen Qinghan's face. Why is this question wrong again? Too hard. I sighed on purpose, muttering to myself. Then I closed the notebook and leaned on the desk, pretending to rest. The door crack quietly closed. The footsteps gradually faded away. I straightened up and let out a cold laugh. Shen Qinghan, the more you guard against me, the more it shows your guilt. You know better than anyone. Those materials aren't yours. You're just a parasite. Without me, you're nothing. In the May mock exam, I scored 695. Shen Qinghan scored 705, ranked first in the grade. Xiao did great this time. Keep it up and the college entrance exam is a lock. My daughter is just so smart. Look whose genes she has. Ha ha ha. Shen Qinghan gave me a smug look. Brother, you need to work harder. I gave a brief response, without arguing, and continued eating, but I was sneering inside. Enjoy it to the fullest. This is your final moment in the spotlight. That night, I tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep, repeatedly simulating the 2 days of the exam, and everything that could possibly happen. June arrived, and so did the college entrance exam. On the night of June 6th, Shen Qinghan went out drinking with friends, claiming it was an early celebration. Mother didn't stop her. She even handed her a stack of cash, saying her daughter had worked hard. To relax a bit, I watched the scene through the gap in my door. Not a single ripple of emotion in my heart, only a sense of irony. As for me, I went to bed at 8 p.m., set the alarm for 6 a.m. the next morning. Lying in bed, I was unusually calm, like a swordsman waiting to be unsheathed. All my endurance will pay off tomorrow. The next morning, I woke up on time, had a quick breakfast and left. Mother drove Shen Qinghan to the exam center. To me, she just dismissively said, "Do your best." I nodded, without saying much, thinking that this was the last time anyway. From now on, we'll stay out of each other's way. The exam was in the school's old teaching building. I was assigned a window seat on the 3rd floor. The sunlight streamed in just right. I sat down, arranged my stationery one by one, took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and whispered in my heart. Shen Montag. You've waited 18 years for this day. Don't lose. The bell for the Chinese exam rang. The moment I flipped open the test paper, my mind was clearer than ever before. Every question felt as familiar as an old friend. Every trap in the reading comprehension, I had anticipated them all. The essay topic was exactly the type I'd practiced countless times. My pen flew across the page. After the Chinese exam, I walked out of the hall. Shen Qinghan immediately rushed over to block me. Shen Mo, how did it go? Not bad. Not bad as in how not bad? How many multiple choice questions did you miss? I don't know. I haven't checked the answers. Shen Qinghan curled her lip, not quite satisfied with the answer, but she didn't press further, turned around and left. I looked at her back, thinking, what are you rushing for? The results come out tomorrow anyway. You'll be the one panicking then. Halfway through the math exam this afternoon, something unexpected happened. A sudden, sharp pain hit my stomach. Maybe something I ate this morning was bad. Cold sweat poured down my face. I slumped over the desk for several seconds before recovering. Are you okay, classmate? I'm fine. You've got to be kidding. I've waited 18 years, just for this one single exam. Even if I die, I'll die over this paper. I pinched my thigh hard. The intense pain made me temporarily forget the discomfort in my stomach. I kept solving the problems. The numbers and formulas blurred before my eyes, but relying purely on muscle memory, I finished every single question. For the final, toughest question, I used 3 different methods to double-check. Only after confirming it was correct did I put down my pen. When I walked out of the exam hall, I was almost completely exhausted. I found a secluded corner and crouched down, recovering for a long time. Shen Qinghan messaged me asking how the math exam went. I replied with one word, normal. He replied instantly, sending a smug expression, clearly thinking he had it in the bag again. I looked at that expression and found it laughable. Ignorance is bliss. That's exactly the kind of person he is. The next day was the comprehensive science and English exams. I had mostly recovered my strength. These 2 subjects were my strengths, especially the comprehensive science. Those physics problems, chemistry deductions, biology, genetics, they were all types I had practiced countless times. I breezed through them. I had 20 minutes left at the end to check. I double-checked every single question twice, ensuring there wouldn't be a single mistake. Not to mention English, it would be hard for the grader not to give me a high score. After finishing the last subject and leaving the hall, I stood at the entrance of the teaching building, looking up at the sky. The sunlight was blinding, but I didn't hide. I just stood there straight, letting it shine on my face. After 18 years, I finally made it. Shen Qinghan was the first to rush over and block my path, a greedy glint in his eyes, asking me how I did. I've never felt better in my life. Shen Qinghan's eyes lit up instantly, as if he saw a mountain of gold and silver. He turned and ran to take credit with our parents. Then I must have done even better. Looking at his joyful retreating figure, I smiled too. It was the smile of a hunter watching the prey fall into the trap. Go on, take your credit. This is the last time you'll ever feel like you've won. During the summer break after the college entrance exam, Shen Qinghan completely let himself go. He beat his chest, promising parents he'd be top 10 in the province, and got a huge advance on his allowance. He upgraded his phone and computer to top spec, but he also took the money our parents worked hard to save and went on a spending spree with a bunch of fair-weather friends. His social media was updated daily, all filled with eating, drinking, and partying, with absolutely no sense of reality. One night, I scrolled past his post with a flood of likes and comments underneath. Things like, "Xiao Xiao, you're amazing," or "Treat us to dinner." I looked at those comments and found it absurd. Meanwhile, I wanted to go back to the countryside to see my grandfather, so I asked my parents for travel money. Before I could even finish my sentence, my mother snapped back at me. She didn't even lift an eyelid, her tone completely dismissive. "What are you looking at? There's no money in the house. Can't you see we still need money for other things?" I looked at her self-righteous face and felt a wave of nausea. Not a single cent for me, but spending like water on Shen Qinghan. These are my parents. My father sat on the sofa watching TV, adding without even looking back, "If you want to go, find a way yourself. Don't count on the family." I didn't say another word and turned back to my room. Early the next morning, I went to a construction site to find a job hauling bricks. The sun was brutally hot, making me dizzy and blurred, but I gritted my teeth and worked for half a month until I saved enough for travel and gifts for my grandfather. Those 2 weeks were the hardest days of my life, just enough for the round-trip fare and some supplements for Grandpa. The day the scores were released, day 161. The day the scores were released happened to be Shen Qinghan's 18th birthday party. To crown her moment of glory, in front of everyone, she threw an incredibly lavish banquet. Every aunt and uncle, parents, colleagues, and bosses were all invited. The ballroom was filled with endless flattery. A distant relative approached my father with a glass, a wide, fake smile on his face. "Old Shen, your ancestors must be proud. Both your twins are so successful. You flatter me, you flatter me." Another relative chimed in, with a hint of malice in their voice. "Oh, the eldest son is just a bookworm, so clueless. Qinghan is the thoughtful one, smart, bright, and high-achieving, 100 times better than her brother." The younger generation surrounded Shen Qinghan like stars around the moon. A cousin looked on, her eyes red with envy. "Sister Han, you're incredible. An admission letter from the top universities in one hand, and a handsome boyfriend on the other. You're truly the winner of life. What time do the scores come out? We want to witness the historic moment a top scholar is born." Shen Qinghan wore a custom haute couture gown. Her makeup was flawless and impeccable. "Don't worry. If you're in the top few of the province, the admissions offices will call to recruit you beforehand." Just as she finished speaking, the phone actually rang, but it wasn't for her. It was for me. Under the stunned gaze of everyone, I answered call after call. The top university admissions teams and professors from several other elite colleges. I thanked them politely, stating I would consider them carefully. Shen Qinghan's eyes nearly popped out of her head, staring intently at her silent phone. Struggling to save face, she gritted her teeth and squeezed out, "The best always makes the grand finale." Finally, the score portal opened. Everyone swarmed her, urging Shen Qinghan to log in. In the corner, I quietly opened the results page. Despite my confidence, at the moment of truth, my palms were slightly damp with sweat. My mother turned to me first, her tone indifferent, asking what my score was. I showed the screen to everyone, and calmly said, "I got 741. The room erupted in shock. I suppressed the tidal wave of joy in my heart, keeping a deadpan expression. "I did it. I actually did it." My mother froze for a moment, giving a curt, stingy nod. Without even a second glance, she lunged toward Shen Qinghan. "Quick! Qinghan's must be even higher." Shen Qinghan was surrounded, completely boxed in, with nowhere to escape. Her finger trembled as she hit the confirm button. The next second, her face froze. Her expression was as priceless as if she'd swallowed a fly. On the screen, 3 bright red digits appeared. 751. Shen Qinghan's voice was shaking. A deathly silence fell over the room. A clueless, distant relative continued to blindly praise her. "Qinghan really is better than her brother. Exactly 10 points higher. A true prodigy. If I recall correctly, the maximum score is only 750, right?" A weak voice from the crowd broke the awkwardness. The atmosphere instantly froze. Shen Qinghan panicked. Cold sweat smeared her exquisite makeup into streaks. It must be a system glitch. Too many people checking at once. It crashed. She refreshed the page frantically, her finger nearly punching through the screen. The score? Once, twice, 3 times. That damn 751 was like a nail, driven deep into the total score column. Someone suggested trying a different phone, wondering if it was a cache issue, like clutching at a straw. Shen Qinghan snatched someone else's phone. The result remained the same, 751. That extra 1 point was like a giant slap across her face. Just then, the ballroom doors were pushed open. Several uniformed police officers and education bureau officials entered with grim expressions. The lead official looked around and asked in a deep voice, "Who is Shen Qinghan?" The Education Examination Institute detected a severe anomaly, suspected of malicious system attack or major cheating. Please come with us for investigation. Shen Qinghan's legs gave out from fear. She collapsed onto the floor, her face as pale as a ghost. My parents panicked when they saw the commotion, but their first instinct wasn't to comfort their daughter. It was a subconscious urge to find a scapegoat. In the chaos, my mother actually shoved me forward. Pointing at me, she screamed at the top of her lungs and screamed that I was the one who did it. He must be jealous. He hacked into the system and altered the scores. Officers, arrest him. This has nothing to do with my daughter. Here we go again. These are my parents. In critical moments, they don't hesitate to use me as a human shield. Here we go again. These are my parents. In critical moments, they don't hesitate to use me as a human shield. No matter how absurd the reason, no matter how nonsensical the logic, as long as they can protect their precious daughter, what did it matter if I was sacrificed? My heart has completely died, and yet, I feel an incredible sense of relief. I shook off my mother's hand and looked coldly at these clowns. I am not a hacker. I am Shen Yi, the top science student in the province. Shen Qinghan is right there. She's the one who achieved the human miracle of 751 points. My father rushed forward in a rage to slap me. I grabbed his wrist in one motion. My gaze was so fierce it terrified him. Dare to touch me and see what happens. The security guards are right behind me. Right now, Tsinghua and Peking University are fighting over me. The media is scrambling to report on me. Just try touching me. From this moment on, in this house, no one can ever constrain me again, and no one can ever bully me again. This coming-of-age party, meant for showing off, turned into a complete farce. Shen Qinghan was taken away for investigation, leaving behind a total disaster. This couldn't be covered up. 751 points on the college entrance exam blew up instantly. It hit the trending searches that very night. The whole internet was watching the drama. Some said greed knows no bounds, that she got too carried away buying scores. Some asked if she could use some brain cells while cheating. The max is 750, but you got 751? You're insulting the graders, or maybe you're insulting the system. Some people dug up Shen Qinghan's social media. They found she spent the last 6 months partying and barely studied at all. Public opinion turned overwhelmingly against her. Everyone believed she used connections to change her score. Someone joked that she got too carried away buying scores and someone's hand slipped. As I scrolled through the comments, I felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction. For 18 years, I've waited for this moment. Waited for 18 years. Finally, everyone sees the truth. The investigation results came out very quickly. Shen Qinghan's answer sheet was abnormal. The multiple choice section somehow scanned 1 extra point. This caused the total score to overflow, although there was no direct evidence to prove that she had modified the answer sheet. But for the sake of fairness, the Education Bureau decided to use the backup papers and force her to retake the exam. When the news reached home, Shen Qinghan was lying on the sofa scrolling through her phone. Upon hearing she had to retake it, she leaped up. Her face instantly turned pale. What do you mean, retake it? Why on earth should I have to retake it? My score was real. It was the system that glitched. My father sat to the side, his face ashen. He hissed at her. Keep your voice down. The neighbors can hear you. My mother was pacing frantically, comforting Shen Qinghan, while trying to figure out a plan. Qinghan, don't panic. If you have to retake it, then retake it. You're so smart. You'll be fine. But Shen Qinghan acted like she'd lost her mind. She threw a tantrum, rolling around the floor, crying and screaming, insisting that I retake the exam with her. No way. Without my brother, I won't take it. Make him take it with me. I want him sitting right next to me. He rushed over and grabbed my arm, digging his nails into my skin. His eyes were bloodshot and terrifying. Shen Mo, you must take the exam with me. Do you hear me? I've already finished my exams. Why should I retake it with you? I shook off his hand and said coldly. Shen Qinghan froze. He looked at me with utter disbelief, as if he never imagined I'd refuse him. Shen Mo, what's with this attitude? Your sister is in this state. Can't you just help her? Xiao Mo, this is about our family's reputation. What's the harm in taking it once with Qinghan? My mother rushed over to take her side. I looked at them, finding it both ridiculous and pathetic. What do they mean, family reputation? That's Shen Qinghan's reputation. None of this ever had anything to do with me, I said, then turned and went back to my room, locking the door behind me. No matter how they knocked or how they cursed, I didn't open it. Such an absurd request was, of course, rejected by the Education Bureau. In the end, under constant supervision, Shen Qinghan took the retake all alone. The exam was held in a conference room at the City Education Bureau. Surveillance cameras ran 24 hours a day, with 3 proctors watching her every move. Terrified she'd pull another stunt. As expected, she failed miserably. Total retake score, 157, lower than what she'd get by blindly guessing. She only had a baseline of 300 points. For the past 6 months, she only cared about dating and dreaming of being number 1. She hadn't even opened a book. The day the results came out, I was hauling bricks at a construction site. I got a message from a classmate saying Shen Qinghan scored 157 on the retake. I froze for a moment. Then I chuckled and crouched on the ground for a long time. My coworker thought I had heat stroke and handed me some water. I waved it off and said I was fine, just too happy. This retake ripped away her facade. 751 before, 157 now. The massive gap sent the internet into a frenzy. The netizens' comments were getting more savage by the second. From heaven to hell in just one retake. The netizens' comments were getting more savage by the second. Some said, ha ha ha, 157 is her real level, right? Some said, now it's confirmed that 751 was definitely cheating. Someone even made a meme, putting 751 and 157 side by side, with the caption, from heaven to hell. All it takes is one retake. Shen Qinghan couldn't take it. The online harassment. She tried to post her transcripts from before senior year to prove herself, but the omnipotent netizens dug up everything. A bizarre, sudden leap in grades during the last 6 months. Before that, she was just a hopeless 300-point student. Everyone became even more certain that this girl had been cheating since senior year. Along the way, netizens dug up my transcripts too. From elementary to high school, every single major exam result was dug up. Since childhood, I had always ranked in the top 3. Now this is a real genius, rock solid in the top 3. Some commented, are they really siblings? How is the gap this huge? Some said one is a 750, and the other isn't even worthy of even 250. I looked at those comments. My heart felt a whirlwind of emotions. I once believed that having good grades would earn me my parents' approval. Later, I realized, no matter how high I scored, in their eyes, I could never measure up to Shen Qinghan because they didn't need an excellent son, but rather a tool to clean up their daughter's messes. The teachers and classmates who once idolized Shen Qinghan now look at her like she's a plague. Even her parents are pointed at when they go out. The neighbors are gossiping behind their backs, saying the Lin family's daughter was just a fraud all along, deceiving everyone with cheating for all these years. What an absolute disgrace. During that time, Shen Qinghan huddled in her room, afraid to face anyone, like a rat crossing the street. The curtains were drawn tight. She even had her mother bring meals to her door, refusing to see a single soul. Meanwhile, holding my admission letter from the top medical school, I packed my bags and returned to my hometown to be with my grandfather. As long as I waited until school started at the end of August, I would be completely free, or so I thought. The countryside summer was hot as a steamer, but my heart was at peace. Grandpa's old house sat at the foot of the mountain. 3 simple mud brick rooms. An old locust tree stood before the door. The cicadas were noisy, yet not annoying. This was my true home. Ever since I could remember, I was dumped here. My parents claimed the countryside air was fresh, good for my health. In reality, they just found me an eyesore, wanting Shen Qinghan to have all the love and resources to herself. One more of me meant one more competitor. Grandpa never spoke ill of my parents to me. He just silently took care of me, taught me how to read and write, told me that in life, I must rely on myself. The thing he said most often was, education is the only way out for children from poor families. I carved those words into my very bones. I stayed at the old house for over 20 days, waking up early every day to help Grandpa feed the chickens, reading in the courtyard during the morning, accompanying him for walks in the fields in the afternoon, and cooling off under the locust tree at night. He told me about the past, about how naughty my father was as a child, about how hardworking my mother was when she first married in. Listening to these unfamiliar memories felt like listening to stories about strangers, because in my memory, my parents were never those kinds of people. One night, we were sitting in the courtyard to cool off. The moonlight was bright. Grandpa suddenly asked how I did on the college entrance exam. I thought for a moment and replied that my teacher said it should be good. Grandpa nodded, a glimmer of light in his cloudy eyes. He looked up at the moon, silent for a while, then said, "Good, that's good. As long as it's good." He let out a sigh. His voice was a bit raspy. "Grandpa hasn't achieved much in this life. I'm counting on you now." I lowered my head. My nose began to sting. From the time I was little until now. He was the only one who ever said such things to me. He was the only one who truly wanted the best for me. Grandpa, once I get into university and get a job, I'll bring you to the city to live. He waved his hand, smiling like a child. I'm not used to the city. It's enough that you have the heart to do it. That night, I lay on the earthen bed of the old house, listening to the insects chirping outside the window, thinking that once the results were official, everything would finally be settled. August 12th, still over half a month before school started. I was in the courtyard helping Grandpa dry the corn, pouring baskets of golden corn onto the bamboo mats, spreading them out when the phone in my pocket suddenly rang. It was my mother's number. I froze for a second. She almost never contacted me on her own. The last time she called was before the exam, asking what score I could get, her tone filled with scrutiny and calculation. I answered the phone. Crying sounds came through the receiver. My mother's voice was raspy and urgent. Shen Mo, come back quickly. Your father has fallen suddenly ill. He's not going to make it. My heart sank violently. The winnowing basket almost slipped from my hand. I asked, what happened? Which hospital is he in? My mother just kept crying, not answering my questions, repeating over and over, come back quickly. Then the line went dead. I stood there frozen, my mind a chaotic mess. Grandpa came out of the house. Seeing my expression, he asked, what's wrong? My father is suddenly ill. He's dying. Don't just stand there. Hurry up and pack. Quick, you have to go back and see him. His expression changed too, urging me to pack my things and go back immediately. I rushed inside and stuffed a few clothes into my backpack. Before I left, Grandpa chased after me and pressed a cloth bag into my hand. Take this, he said, his voice heavy. This was his emergency fund, along with a few hundred yuan bills, totaling about 2,000 yuan. He had saved it bit by bit, selling eggs and vegetables for his retirement. I tried to give it back, but he had already turned and gone back inside. His hunched silhouette looked painfully frail in the doorway. I gripped the cloth bag, my eyes stinging with tears. A 2-hour bus ride from the village to the county town. Another 3 hours from the county to the city. Then a high-speed train. The whole journey would take nearly 10 hours. I bought a ticket for the earliest bus. Sitting on the jolting bus, the scenery blurred past the window. But my mind began to clear. Something was wrong. Too many things were wrong. My mother's sobbing was too dramatic, so exaggerated it felt like a performance. And she never mentioned what illness my father had, not which hospital he was in, not even how critical his condition was. She just kept urging me to come back. If he were truly in critical condition, she would have said, your father is at X hospital. Get here quickly. Not come back home. Come back? Back where? If he was being resuscitated in a hospital, how could she be at home calling me? Felt more like she was afraid I wouldn't return. The more I thought about it, the more suspicious it became. I called my father's phone. Busy. I tried again. Still busy. I changed my approach. I called a colleague from my father's workplace, an older man I'd met a few times. I politely asked if something had happened to my father. He sounded bewildered. What? Your dad treated everyone to dinner last week. He's doing great. Is something wrong? Nothing. I probably misheard. I made up an excuse and hung up. Sure enough, as I leaned back in my seat, staring at the endless mountains outside, a weight was lifted from my chest. It wasn't that I was cold-blooded, it's just that I know this family too well. If my father were truly dying, Shen Qinghan would have been wailing all over the internet, playing the victim for sympathy. There's no way there would be total silence, since it's a scam. What is their goal in tricking me back? Took me a few hours to figure it out. The answer was obvious. The scandal with Shen Qinghan was too big. That 751 joke is still trending. Even after repeating a year, she couldn't get into a good college. Because without me, she is absolutely nothing. I'm about to start a new life at a top university. Finally escaping this mire. They won't allow that to happen. In their eyes, my only value in existence is to be a stepping stone for Shen Qinghan. A tool, a blood bag. Once I realized this, I stopped panicking. I even felt the composure of a hunter, waiting for the prey to take the bait. But this time, the hunter and the prey will switch places. Since you want to act, I'll play along until the end. But the final script would be written by me. On the train, I used Grandpa's money to buy a cheap backup phone and a power bank. I fully charged both phones and downloaded an app that auto-uploads recordings to the cloud. I tested it 3 times to make sure it was foolproof. I also messaged a few future roommates. In the university freshman group, I sent them a message, briefly explaining the situation, telling them that if they can't reach me for over 48 hours, they should call the police for me, and I shared my real-time location with them. Better safe than sorry. Looking at those messages, a wave of warmth surged in my heart. Strangers are willing to help me. while my so-called flesh and blood want to push me into a pit of fire. How ironic this world is. By the time I got home, it was already the next evening. The setting sun stained the old apartment buildings a dull yellow. I stood downstairs, dragging my suitcase, looking up at the place I lived for years, yet where I never felt I belonged. I took a deep breath, went upstairs and knocked. The door opened. My mother's face appeared. Her eyes were red, as if she had just been crying. She froze for a moment when she saw me. Then, a flattering smile immediately appeared. "Oh, Xiao Montag, you're finally back. Come in, come in." His unusual enthusiasm gave me the chills. All my life, when has he ever been this attentive to me? I entered the house calmly. My eyes quickly scanned the living room. My father was sitting on the sofa watching TV, holding the remote in his hand. His complexion was rosy and healthy, not a single sign of being critically ill. Didn't they say father was in critical condition? Why is he at home watching TV? I stood in the entryway, still gripping the handle of my suitcase. I asked in a calm voice. The air in the living room froze for a moment. Father looked up and glanced at me. His expression was somewhat unnatural. The smile on mother's face stiffened. Then she quickly tried to cover it up. "Oh, it was a false alarm. Your dad was feeling unwell yesterday, but the hospital checkup showed nothing serious. We thought since you're about to go to school in Bayan, we wanted you to come back for a reunion. After all, we're family." Those 3 words sounded exceptionally ironic coming from her. I didn't expose them. I just nodded and gave a brief response. I took off my shoes and entered. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted Shen Qinghan at the other end of the sofa. She was huddled in the corner, wearing pajamas. Her hair was a mess. Her face was sallow, with dark circles under her eyes. A far cry from the proud, brilliant girl she was a few months ago. Like 2 completely different people. Seeing me enter, she looked up. Her gaze was complex. There was resentment, fear, and something else I couldn't quite decipher. I pretended not to notice. I went straight to my room to drop off my luggage. My room is the innermost one, just a dozen square meters, never seeing any sunlight. It used to be a storage room when I was little. Later, when I returned from my grandfather's for school, they barely cleared it out for me to live in. Shen Qinghan's room faces south. The master bedroom is large and bright. The distribution of resources in this house had always been divided this cruelly. I closed the door and began inspecting the room, checking the desk, bookshelf, wardrobe, and under the bed, confirming nothing had been tampered with. Then, I took out the spare phone from my backpack, found a hidden angle, and propped it up among the clutter on the bookshelf. The camera was pointed exactly at the door, turned on recording mode, set it to silent, ensuring there would be no notification sounds while recording. After doing all this, I lay on the bed, pretending to sleep, but my ears were sharp, catching every single sound from the living room. For dinner, mother prepared a whole table of dishes. For once, she actually called me out to eat. She even served me food, saying, "Shen Mo, you've lost weight. You're leaving home soon. Eat more." I ate without tasting a thing. My mind was racing, analyzing what they were really thinking. When would they reveal their fangs? After dinner, father coughed, clearing his throat, as if he was about to start a lecture. I looked up, with a perfectly timed look of confusion on my face. "Listen, Xiao Montag. The reason we asked you to come back is that there's something we want to discuss with you. It's like this. Your sister hasn't been doing well lately. As you know, the college entrance exam was a huge blow to her. She's severely depressed now and refuses to even leave her room. Your mother and I discussed it. You're her biological brother and the person closest to her. Could you spend more time with her? Try to guide her through this." I waited for them to reveal their true intentions. Sure enough, mother chimed in. Her tone was slightly probing. "That's right, Shen Mo. You two are fraternal twins, bound by blood, tied together by bone and sinew. Please help your sister. What's wrong?" I still didn't respond. I just looked at them. The atmosphere was tense for a moment. Suddenly, Shen Qinghan looked up. With red eyes, she looked at me. "I know I was wrong. Is it okay? I've thought it through during this time. It was all my fault before. I shouldn't have treated you like that. Can you give me one more chance?" I almost burst out laughing. Her acting has improved. Too bad I'm not buying it. What exactly do you want from me? Just stop beating around the bush. I don't have the patience to play these games. Father and mother exchanged a glance, as if confirming something. Father finally laid his cards on the table. "Shen Mo, it's like this. We've come up with a plan to ensure Qinghan can also go to school. Qinghan told us about her college entrance exam scores. That 10-point rule or whatever. You should know better than we do. There's a very special connection between you two. As long as you're there, she can get high scores. My heart skipped a beat. She actually told them this secret. Father stood up and walked toward me. His tone left no room for argument. I was stunned. So, I discussed it with your mother. See if you can go back to school at Qingbei for a year. Take the exam again next year with Qinghan. Then she can also get into a good university. If our family has 2 students from Qingbei, wouldn't that bring honor to our ancestors? It wasn't that I was shocked by the absurdity of the request, but by how entitled they sounded when they asked. As if this were perfectly natural. As if sacrificing my future for Shen Qinghan was only right. Shen Mo, this isn't bad for you either. You're so smart. You'll definitely get in again next year. With the reputation of being a top scorer, and the effort of repeating a year, Tsinghua and Peking University will fight over you. And Qinghan can have a bright future too. All 4 of us in the family will be successful. Isn't this a win-win for everyone? A win-win for the 4 of us. I've already received my admission letter. Why on earth should I repeat a year? Father waved his hand dismissively. What's an admission letter? That thing becomes void if you don't report for enrollment. Shen Mo, you're the older brother. What's wrong with letting your sister have her way? Once Qinghan is successful, she won't forget you. You'll get a share of the money she earns. I just heard the funniest joke in the world. I said I don't agree. As soon as the words left my mouth, the atmosphere dropped to freezing. Father's face darkened. Mother's expression froze. Shen Qinghan suddenly looked up. The pleading in her eyes instantly turned sinister. Shen Mo, what's with this attitude? We're trying to discuss this nicely with you. How can you refuse so bluntly? Because there is no room for negotiation. Father stood up. His voice carried a threat. I said there is no room for negotiation. I stood up as well, looking them straight in the eye. You want me to give up Qingbei? To repeat a year with someone who can only score 157? And then use my scores to push her into a top university? On what grounds? Because she's your sister? You're the brother. It's only natural to help your sister. You're the brother. It's only natural to help your sister. I've helped her for 18 years. From the time we were kids, you gave her every single resource. While you threw me in the countryside and ignored me. Now that she's ruined her own life, you suddenly remember I exist. Expecting me to sacrifice my future to clean up her mess. Father slammed the table. The dishes and chopsticks jumped. Shen Mo, what is your attitude? What attitude? Exactly this attitude. I'm not doing it. I turned and walked toward my room. Shen Mo, who do you think you are? Those scores should have been mine in the first place. Without me, what are you? Whether out of anger or desperation, Mother rushed to block my path. Pointing at me, she screamed, Shen Mo, you've upset your sister this much. Do you have any conscience left? I asked her, do you have a conscience? Do any of you have a conscience? I couldn't be bothered to argue with them anymore. I entered the room and locked the door behind me. The sound of things being smashed echoed from outside, along with Father's furious shouting, Mother's wailing, mixed in with Shen Qinghan's screams. Like a boiling pot of chaos, I leaned against the door, closed my eyes, listening to all that noise, yet my heart was eerily calm. Tonight was just the first round. The real war is yet to begin. I have a feeling they won't give up that easily. Let them wait. I have plenty of patience. That night, I didn't sleep. My eyes were fixed on the ceiling. My ears remained on high alert. Around 2 a.m., I heard whispering outside the door, like people talking in hushed tones. I held my breath, listening closely. It was my father and mother. My mother's voice was very low, but I could still hear her clearly. Old Shen, why don't we take advantage of him sleeping and take his things? Without his ID and admission letter, let's see how he manages to leave. Look, the lights in his room are off. He must be asleep. Let's do it tonight, before something goes wrong. Footsteps approached the door. My heart raced, but my body didn't budge an inch. Pretending to be fast asleep, the doorknob turned slightly. I was glad I had locked the door. This kid even locked the door. Forget it, we'll deal with it tomorrow. He can't escape anyway. The footsteps gradually faded away. I opened my eyes, staring at the ceiling in the dark. I sneered inwardly, just as I expected, just as I expected, just as I expected. They never intended to let me go. Just as I expected. They never intended to let me go. From the moment I stepped through that door, they never intended to let me go. I had fallen right into their trap. But what they didn't know, I had already prepared for this. In this game, it's not yet certain who will win. The next morning, I tentatively tried to turn the doorknob. The door was locked from the outside. My heart sank. I walked to the window and looked out. Outside the window were security bars, welded shut. There was no way out. I still had a phone signal, but the internet had been cut. I used my data to text my roommates that I was safe, telling them I was okay for now, but things were looking bad. I told them to stand by. Around 10 a.m., the lock clicked. My mother came in carrying a bowl of porridge, a fake smile plastered on her face. Hungry? Eat something. Have you changed your mind yet? I didn't take the bowl. She placed the porridge on the table, sighed, her voice tinged with a threat. I looked at her, remaining silent. If you keep being stubborn, don't blame us for being ruthless. Shen Mo, let me give you some advice. The wise know when to surrender. Even if you got into Tsinghua or Peking University, so what? Who's going to pay your tuition and living expenses? Do you think we'll give you a single penny? When you can't even afford school, won't you have to come crawling back? Seeing my silence, she thought I was wavering. Is that admission letter still there? I wouldn't be so sure. If you're obedient, repeat the year, and next year we'll fully support you to aim higher. But if you don't listen, she didn't finish the sentence, but the meaning was crystal clear. I still didn't say a word. After she left, I realized the door had been locked again. From this moment on, I was officially under house arrest. I could stay calm on the first day. By the second day, anxiety set in, not because I was afraid, but because time was slipping away. The start of the semester was drawing closer. I had to find a way out. On the third day, I decided to take a risk.
2 Uhr nachts.
Everyone was asleep. I got up quietly, using the file of a nail clipper to pick the lock. This old-fashioned spring lock wasn't hard to open. Took me about 10 minutes, until I finally heard a soft click. The door opened. I held my breath. This old-fashioned spring lock wasn't hard to open. Took me about 10 minutes, until I finally heard a soft click. The door opened, and I held my breath, moving outward one step at a time. The living room was pitch black. I felt my way along the wall, walking toward the front door, my heart beating so hard it felt like it would leap from my throat. The floorboards beneath me occasionally let out a faint creak. With every sound, I stopped to listen. Only after confirming no one was there did I move forward. Just as my hand was about to touch the doorknob, the lights flashed on, and I froze. My father stood at the entrance of the hallway, holding a wooden stick in his hand, his face pale with rage. He had clearly been waiting for me to try and run. My mother and Shen Qinghan had also appeared at some point, standing aside and watching. My mother and Shen Qinghan had also appeared at some point, standing aside and watching. Not a single one of them spoke up to stop it. There was even a smirk of satisfaction on Shen Qinghan's face. Father grew tired from the beating, stopping to gasp for breath. Listen to me,
Shen Montag.
Don't ever dream of escaping this house in your life. Unless you agree to repeat the year. I lay sprawled on the floor, my whole body trembling, not out of fear, but out of pure rage. 18 years of endurance almost burst through my chest at this moment, but I held it back. Now is not the time. I don't have enough evidence yet. My backup plan isn't in place. I was dragged back to my room, thrown onto the bed. The door was locked shut again, with a new lock added. This time, it was the kind that hangs from the outside, impossible to pick. I lay on the bed, my back burning with pain. That pain, however, only made me more lucid. Shen Mo, what's the rush? You've already waited 18 years. A few more days won't make a difference. Let them gloat for a few more days. Once you've gathered enough evidence, not one of them will get away. For the next 2 days, I behaved myself, making no further attempts to escape. I ate when it was time to eat, and slept when it was time to sleep. On the surface, I seemed to have accepted my fate. My parents thought I had been beaten into submission, so their surveillance of me loosened slightly. But the door remained locked. I still couldn't get out. I used these 2 days to carefully observe their routine, noting exactly when each person went to sleep. And when they woke up, I committed every detail to memory, waiting for the perfect moment. On the night of the 4th day, they finally made their move. At 2:07 a.m., I heard the lock click softly. It wasn't a tentative sound, but the sound of someone unlocking the door. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing steady, pretending to be fast asleep, but every nerve in my body was taut. The door was pushed open. The footsteps were light, as if they were afraid of waking me. There were 2 of them, judging by the rhythm of their breathing. One was my mother. They made their way to my desk and began searching for something. I maintained my sleeping posture, but my heart began to race involuntarily. I knew exactly what they were looking for, my ID card and the admission notice. These 2 things were the keys to leaving this hell, and the leverage they used to trap me. Still can't find it. Where do you think he hid it? Keep looking. It has to be in this room. He couldn't have taken it out. Father grumbled impatiently. They ransacked the desk drawers, searched the bookshelves and my backpack, and even felt through the pockets of my clothes. I felt someone standing by my bed for a moment, likely hesitating over whether to search my pillow. Suddenly, a third voice came from the doorway. "Did you find it? Shoo! Don't wake him up." It was Shen Qinghan. Shen Qinghan walked in impatiently, her footsteps much louder than my parents'. Clearly, she didn't care at all if she woke me. I felt her stand by my bedside, looking down at me with a scrutinizing gaze. That gaze was as cold as a viper. I could almost feel her breath on my face. "Stop pretending. I know you're awake." I didn't move, still maintaining the rhythm of my breathing, but in my head, I was cursing her. This mad woman is terrifyingly perceptive. Shen Qing hadn't stopped pestering me about whether I was awake. She had joined the search. Her movements were far more violent than my parents'. Things were thrown everywhere in a mess. Books were flung from the shelves to the floor one by one. Drawers were ripped wide open. My ID card was hidden in a secret layer of the pillowcase. The admission letter was folded into a tiny piece and sewn into the lining of my suitcase. I thought they wouldn't find them, but I underestimated Shen Qinghan's madness. She ripped my pillow away and started feeling the pillowcase, feeling it inch by inch, like a drug raid, leaving no corner unchecked. When she felt that hidden layer, her hand stopped, then a triumphant scream. "Found it!" My heart tightened, but I remained still. Then she lunged at my suitcase, like a crazed beast, dumping everything out of it. Then she started ripping it apart. The sound of the lining tearing was ear-piercing. Her nails scraped across the lining, until she finally felt that hard object. I couldn't take it anymore. I bolted upright and slammed the bedside lamp switch. The light flooded the room, blinding everyone, making them squint. The scene before me became clear. My father and mother were standing by the desk, holding my ID card. They looked a bit guilty, but mostly they looked self-righteous. Shen Qinghan stood by the suitcase, clutching an envelope, the envelope containing my admission letter. Her expression was like she'd found treasure. Greedy and excited, I stared at them, my voice cold, asking what they were doing in the middle of the night. In the dead of night. "What the hell are you doing?" The three of them exchanged looks. They decided to stop pretending. Father slammed the ID card onto the table and spoke with utter confidence. "Humph,
Shen Montag.
We won't beat around the bush. Qinghan told us everything. As long as you're around, she can get high scores. This is the bond between you siblings. Just accept your fate." Mother leaned in, her eyes filled with calculation and threats. "Little Mo, listen to your mother. Retaking the year won't hurt you. You're so smart. You'll definitely get in again next year. By then, Qinghan will also be in school. Our family will have 2 students from top universities. Isn't that a win-win?" I said I won't do it. I stood up to take back my ID, but father shoved me away. He was stronger than I imagined. I stumbled back and hit the wall. The wound on my back flared in pain. Father's face leaned closer, his voice a chilling threat. "Won't do it. Do you think you have a choice? From this day forward, don't even think about going anywhere. No ID. No admission letter. You can't go to Bayan. You'll still get into a top school. No one is holding you back." What? Not holding me back, yet making me repeat a year? Tearing my entire life plan to shreds? Making me a stepping stone for a piece of trash? You call that not holding me back? I took a deep breath, suppressing the surging rage. Now is not the time to burn all bridges. I need more evidence. I asked them, "So you came tonight to confiscate my things?" Mother sneered, no longer bothering to hide it. "Why call it confiscating? Everything in this house belongs to your parents. You're still a child. Something as important as an ID should be kept by us. What's the problem?" I looked at Shen Qinghan. She was pulling the admission letter out of the envelope, a look of vengeful satisfaction on her face. She held up the letter, like a trophy. Then she did something I'll never forget. She gripped the admission letter, her eyes burning with insane hatred, and right in front of me, slowly and forcefully tore it in half. The sound was crisp and ear-piercing, like the sound of something snapping. She wasn't satisfied yet. She kept tearing those 2 halves. With every rip, the corners of her mouth curled up a bit more. The paper turned into a pile of shreds, fluttering to the ground like snowflakes. Her movements were slow, as if savoring every second of it. I stared at those fragments. My mind went blank for a moment. That was the reward for 12 years of hard study. The result of countless days and nights of grinding. The starting point of my new life. And just like that, she tore it to pieces. Shen Qinghan looked at my expression, smiling like a lunatic. "The admission letter is gone. Let's see how you'll register now." "Shen Mo, You'll be my stepping stone for the rest of your life. I want you to rot in the mud with me." She grew more agitated as she spoke. Her whole body was trembling. With her hair disheveled, she looked like a ghost. "Why are you better than me? Why does everyone praise you? Why do you get to go to Jingbei while I'm stuck at home being mocked? Those marks should have been mine." Tears began to fall from her eyes, but it wasn't out of grievance. It was resentment, it was jealousy, it was madness. But just then, her voice suddenly dropped, like she was talking to herself, or perhaps talking to me. "Do you know how scared I am? Since I was a child, I knew my grades were fake, that they were stolen from you. Before every single exam, I was scared to death. Scared that one day I'd stop. Scared that one day I'd fail like a piece of trash. Scared that everyone would find out. Actually, I hate you," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Hate me? Hates that I'm smarter than her. The ridiculous part is, she actually thinks I didn't have to do anything to get such high scores. I hate myself even more. That without you, I am nothing. So you can't leave. You must stay. You must forever be my stepping stone. That's the only way I can survive." I looked at her, looking at the person I called sister for 18 years. For the first time, I found her pathetic. But being pathetic isn't a reason for me to forgive her, nor is it an excuse for her to destroy my life. Father and mother stood to the side, watching Shen Qinghan's meltdown, yet not a single one of them stopped her. There was even a hint of approval on their faces, as if she had done something satisfying. I watched this scene, and suddenly found it absurd and profoundly tragic. This is my family. This is what they call blood is thicker than water. I lowered my head, looking at the fragments on the floor. My shoulders began to shake. They thought I was crying, thought I had broken down. My mother sneered. "Enough, what's with the crying? It's not that big of a deal. Just take the exam again next year. Consider this a lesson learned. Be more obedient from now on." I didn't say a word. I just knelt down, using my trembling hands to pick up the pieces. Shen Qinghan looked at my pathetic state. The smile on her face grew even more unrestrained. "Cry. Keep crying. You deserve this. This is your fate." I looked up at her. She froze, because there were no tears in my eyes, only a cold, piercing hatred. I slowly stood up, with a fleeting, momentary smile. She was terrified by that smile, instinctively taking a step back, asking me what I was smiling about. My voice was hoarse yet calm. "Nothing. I was just thinking that your performance just now was quite brilliant. If you can't make it in life later, you could always be an actress." I didn't say anything more. Instead, I slumped by the bed, pretending to be hopeless, my eyes vacant, muttering to myself, "It's over. It's all over." Shen Qinghan looked at me. The alertness on her face gradually faded, replaced by the smugness of a victor. "So now you're scared. Why didn't you do this sooner?" My father snorted coldly and stuffed my ID into his pocket. "That's enough, everyone go to bed. From this day forward, this kid isn't going anywhere." The three of them, as if they'd finished a task, locked the door from the outside before leaving. The sound of the lock clicking was faint, but it hit me like a thunderclap. I've been locked up. The room plunged back into darkness. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to their receding footsteps, listening to the house return to silence. Then I stood up, walked to the bookshelf, and from the pile of clutter, I pulled out the backup phone with the red light still blinking. They didn't expect it. They searched the entire room, but forgot to check the pile they thought was just trash. The recording captured everything. Shen Qinghan's madness as she tore up the notice, my parents watching coldly from the side, their faces as they even egged her on. The conspiracy they admitted with their own mouths. It's all in this video. I uploaded the video to the cloud, backing it up and backing it up, backing it up again to ensure it was foolproof. Then I edited a short version and posted it online. Caption: "This is the nightmare of a family I need to escape." After posting, I dialed the police. "I want to report a crime. I'm being illegally detained by my family." The operator asked for my address and basic details. Answered. He said they would send someone and told me to wait. After the call, I muted the phone and hid it back in the clutter. Then I lay back down on the bed. My heart was racing, but on the surface I had to remain calm. I didn't know how long it would take for the police to arrive, nor what would happen before then. But I knew, as long as I survived tonight, everything would be different. Time passed minute by minute. The sky outside began to turn pale. My eyes remained wide open, staring at the ceiling, my ears catching every tiny sound in the house. For 23, I heard footsteps. It was Shen Qinghan. Her footsteps were light, as if afraid of waking someone, but in the silence of the night, They were still clearly audible. She stopped outside my door. I held my breath, motionless. The lock clicked. She came in again. I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep, my heartbeat drumming in my ears. She walked to my bedside and stood there for a while. I could feel her gaze on me, filled with scrutiny and suspicion. Then she began to wander around the room, her footsteps drifting near and far, like a beast patrolling its territory. I didn't know what she was looking for, but I had a bad feeling. The footsteps stopped in front of the bookshelf. My heart tightened suddenly. The sound of searching began. She was rummaging through the clutter. My fingers quietly gripped the edge of the blanket, my mind racing. If she found the phone, what would I do? Suddenly, the searching stopped. The air froze. I could almost hear my own heartbeat. Shen Qinghan's voice asked in confusion, "What is this?" I knew she had found it. It's over. I snapped my eyes open and sat up, just in time to see her holding that backup phone. The red recording dot still glowing on the screen. Her face shifted from confusion to shock, and then to a hideous sneer. Took only a second. "What? You were recording?" She screamed and lunged at me, like a crazed beast. I didn't have time to dodge. Her nails slashed across my face, stinging with a searing pain. I grabbed her wrist, and the two of us scrambled in a fight. Though she was a girl, at this moment she was like a lunatic, her strength terrifying. We knocked over the nightstand, the lamp crashing to the floor, shattering everywhere. The noise was too loud. My parents were quickly awakened. My father rushed in, saw the scene, and without a word, shoved me away. "How dare you hit your sister?" I clutched my head, gasping for breath, and said, "I didn't hit her. He was the one who started it." Shen Qinghan had already scrambled up from the floor, still clutching that phone tightly in his hand. He ran behind my father. "Dad, he was secretly recording. He recorded everything we did." My father's expression shifted instantly. He snatched the phone away, glanced down at the screen, his face growing darker by the second, the veins on his forehead bulging. "Shen Mo, you've really done it now. You're truly impressive." He slammed the phone violently onto the floor. The screen shattered, but the body remained intact. He stomped on it repeatedly with all his might, until the phone was nothing more than a pile of scrap metal. I watched the crushed phone, but I didn't feel a shred of panic, because the video had already been uploaded to the cloud. This phone was just a shell. But I didn't let it show. Instead, I wore a look of utter despair, as if my last lifeline had been ripped away. My mother rushed over as well, her face turning pale with rage upon seeing the scene. "This ungrateful brat wants to call the police, wants to throw us all in jail. He must be planning to post the video online, just like how he exposed me back then." Without a word, my father slapped me again. My cheeks swelled up instantly. I tasted blood in my mouth. "Let me tell you, Shen Mo, this isn't over today. You stay right here and behave. Don't even think about leaving. If you dare call the police or post this online, I'll break your legs." He stormed out, cursing under his breath, before telling Qinghan to keep a close eye on me. "Now, reflect on your actions." He left too. The door was locked from the outside once again. This time, he even blocked the door with something. I heard the sound of a chair being dragged. I was left alone in the room, surrounded by chaos. I leaned against the corner of the wall, touching my swollen face, thinking they have no idea the police are already on their way, nor that the video is already online. They think destroying a phone solves everything. Little do they know, the real storm has only just begun. Time ticked away. The sky grew brighter. I heard birds chirping outside the window. Around 6 a.m., I heard my father's phone ring, followed by his panicked voice. What? What video? Who posted it?" Then came my mother's piercing scream, and Shen Qinghan's wailing. The whole house descended into chaos. I knew the video had gone viral. I don't know how much time passed, maybe half an hour. I heard a knock at the door. The knocking was loud, urgent, accompanied by shouting. "Open up, this is the police station. We received a report." My father's voice rang out from the living room, panicked and guilty. "Police? Who called the police? Damn it, Lin, what do we do?" "Don't panic. Hide that kid. Just say he's not home." I listened from inside the room, and sneered. "Hide? Where are you going to hide me?" The knocking grew more insistent. "Whoever is inside, open the door, otherwise we will use force to enter." My father finally broke. I heard the door swing open, followed by a flurry of noisy conversation. I couldn't make out the details, but I could tell my father was making excuses, explaining, trying to smooth things over. A few minutes later, the obstacle outside my door was moved. The door opened. 2 uniformed officers stood at the entrance. The moment they saw me, their brows furrowed. One of the younger officers stepped forward. "Are you the one who called?" I nodded. He looked at the bruises on my face and my swollen lip, then glanced at the wreckage of the room. his expression turning grave. You're hurt. Who did this to you? I said, my father. My father's voice drifted in from the living room, laced with rage and desperation. Officer, this is a family matter. What's wrong with me disciplining him? The older officer glanced back at him. A family matter? Is illegal detention and restricting personal freedom a family matter? We received a report stating someone was locked in their home by family. We also received a video. Take a look for yourself. You call this a family matter? He handed the phone to the father. The screen played the video I had recorded. Footage of my parents and Shen Qinghan ransacking my things. Shen Qinghan's madness as she tore up the admission letter. The words they spoke with their own mouths. Everything was crystal clear. My father's face instantly turned pale. My mother's legs gave out. She nearly collapsed to the floor. Shen Qinghan hid in the corner, her hair disheveled, her eyes hollow, like a crushed insect. Witness, can you come with us? We need you to come and give a statement. I nodded and stood up, stepping over the shards on the floor as I walked out. As I passed my father, he suddenly reached out to stop me, but was brushed aside by the police. You are now suspected of illegal detention and intentional assault. Behave yourself. My father's hand froze in midair, his expression as if he had swallowed a fly, angry, terrified, and utterly helpless. I didn't look at him and walked straight out the door. Behind me came my mother's wailing.
Xiao Montag.
You can't do this to us. We are your parents. If you do this, how can we ever show our faces again? I stopped in my tracks, turned around to look at her, my voice calm. You stopped treating me like a human long ago. Now it's your turn to taste that feeling. My mother froze, as if she were meeting me for the first time. Shen Qinghan suddenly rushed forward, but was blocked by the police. She screamed at me from behind the officer's arm.
Shen Montag.
You'll regret this. I won't let you get away with this. Just you wait. Remember, from this day forward, we are dead to each other. Then I turned and got into the police car, without looking back. It was already noon by the time I finished the statement at the station. The police told me that based on the video evidence and my injuries, my father is suspected of intentional assault and illegal detention, and will be dealt with according to the law. As for Shen Qinghan destroying property, although the admission letter was issued by the school, it is my personal property. She will also bear the corresponding legal responsibility. Then what about my admission letter? Can it be reissued? You'll have to contact the school to ask. They will help you issue the necessary certification. Thank you. I squinted at the sky, feeling as if I had just woken from a very, very long nightmare. I'm finally awake. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. A familiar voice came from the other end.
Xiao Montag.
Is that you? Are you okay? Did you see the video? His voice was urgent, with other voices chatting in the background. My roommates must all be there. I'm fine. I've already called the police. The police got me out. A cheer erupted from the other end of the line. Yuhao's voice rang out. That's great, brother. We were worried sick. Where are you now? Do you need us to pick you up? I smiled. I said there was no need, then hung up. I stood there, thinking for a long time about what to do next. My ID was taken by my father. My admission letter was torn up by Shen Qinghan. I am now penniless, with nowhere to go. But I wasn't panicked at all, because the hardest step has already been taken. The rest are just procedural issues. I can go to the school and explain the situation, to get a new admission letter. I can go to the police station to replace my ID. I can apply for a student loan for tuition. All these difficulties can be solved. The only thing that couldn't be solved was the poison of my family of origin. Now, I have cut that poison away with my own hands. I went to the police station to get a temporary ID, and then used the last of my money to buy a train ticket to Bayan, a hard-seat ride for over 10 hours. I don't care. It was already evening when I boarded the train. The setting sun spilled across the seat through the window. I leaned against the glass, watching the scenery rush past outside. A sense of freedom and lightness, unlike anything I'd ever felt, surged within me. So this is what freedom feels like. The train clattered forward. I closed my eyes and fell asleep. For the first time in a long while, I had the most peaceful sleep of my life. No nightmares, no waking up in a panic, only a long, gentle darkness. By the time I woke up, the train had reached the station, Bayan Station. I dragged my meager luggage off the platform. Before me lay a strange city. Towering skyscrapers, endless streams of traffic, completely different from that suffocating little town. There was an indescribable scent in the air. It smelled of hope, of the future, the scent of a new life. I found the cheapest hostel I could and checked in. Then, I contacted the university to explain my situation. The admissions officer was shocked after hearing my story. They said they'd handle it as quickly as possible. Told me not to worry. 3 days later, I received my replacement admission letter. The brand new red cover looked exactly like the first one. But the meaning was entirely different. I pressed the letter against my chest, standing at the campus gates, looking up at the plaque that read, Bayan University. My eyes suddenly welled up. For 12 years, since I can remember, I was cast aside in the countryside, ignored, neglected, treated like a ghost. I thought I would spend my whole life in Shen Qinghan's shadow, forever his stepping stone. But now here I stand, by my own strength, standing at the gates of the nation's top institution. No one left behind to drag me down. My life, from this moment on, truly belongs to me. The first day of school, I met the roommates I'd connected with online. Chen Yi was tall, with tan skin, clearly an athlete. Then there was Yu Hao, wearing glasses, refined and scholarly, a top student admitted through competitions. And then there was Wang Mo, quiet but he seemed reliable. The first thing they said to me was, "You're the Shen Mo from that video? You're way more handsome in person." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Handsome? The wounds on my face hadn't even healed. Yu Hao leaned in and looked closely at my face. He frowned, still bruised. "They really beat you badly." Wang Mo didn't say a word, but he pulled a tube of ointment from his bag and handed it to me. For the swelling, I took it, feeling a warmth in my heart. I whispered, "Thank you." That night, the 4 of us sat in the dorm and talked for a long time. They asked what happened after that incident. I told them the police were still handling it. The final outcome was still unknown. Chan Yi cursed those trash parents. Yu Hao sighed and said, "You've really been through a lot." Wang Mo remained quiet, but he poured me a glass of water. Eventually, the topic shifted. We talked about our majors, about clubs and our plans for the next 4 years. The kind of things ordinary college students talk about. I suddenly realized this is what a normal life is. This is how 18 should feel. That night, lying in my dorm bed, listening to the overlapping snores of my roommates, watching the moonlight outside the window, I thought of my grandfather. I remembered what he used to say, "Education is the only way out for children of the poor." Grandpa, I did it. I gave him a call. Told him I'd arrived at school, that everything was fine. On the other end, he was so happy he was speechless. He just kept repeating, "Good, good, very good. You've made something of yourself." I didn't tell him about everything that happened. I didn't want him to worry. I only told him the campus was huge, beautiful, and the cafeteria food was great. He sounded so happy. He told me to study hard, not to worry about him, that he was doing just fine. After hanging up, I lay back down, thinking that once I'm capable, I will definitely bring Grandpa to live with me, to give him the life he deserves. It's the least I owe him, and the only relative I want to repay. College life unfolded as planned. Military training, classes, clubs, busy and fulfilling. I studied desperately. I pushed myself to enter every competition, wanting to prove myself and to make up for the lost time. Months later, I received a notice from the police station. My father, for illegal detention and intentional injury, was sentenced to 3 months of detention, with a 6-month probation. My mother, as an accomplice, was administratively detained for 15 days. Shen Qinghan, for destroying others' property, was fined and ordered to pay compensation. The sentences weren't heavy, but for them it was enough. Because that video completely destroyed their reputation. My father lost his job. His workplace fired him to avoid the embarrassment. My mother was pointed at by neighbors whenever she went out, unable to hold her head high. As for Shen Qinghan, not to mention, his name had become a laughingstock online. 751. And tearing up his own brother's notice. These 2 things were enough to socially destroy him for life. I heard he later developed mental issues and was sent to see a psychiatrist. As for the specifics, I don't know, nor do I want to know. He brought it upon himself. They tried to contact me through calls and texts, nothing more than begging for forgiveness, begging me to drop the charges, begging me to delete the video. I ignored them all. Eventually, they probably gave up, and I never heard from them again. That past is like a locked drawer, one I have no intention of opening again. The days passed by. Freshman, sophomore, junior year. My grades consistently ranked in the top 3 of my major. I won scholarships, joined the party, and published 2 papers. Everyone said Shen Mo had a boundless future. I smiled modestly, but deep down I knew these achievements were paid for with my life. Every sleepless night, every moment of exhaustion, was just to get further away from that abyss. During the summer of my junior year, I returned to my hometown to visit my grandfather. He had aged significantly, more hunched, his hair completely white, but his spirit was still strong. He was as happy as a child to see me. I sat with him in the courtyard, just like when I was little. He peeled peanuts for me, and I told him about school. The sunlight was warm, the shadow of the locust tree dappled the ground. Felt as if time had gone back 10+ years. Grandfather suddenly asked, "Are you still in contact with your parents?"
No.
Sigh. They are your parents after all. No matter how poorly they acted, they are the ones who gave you life. Grandpa, I know what you mean. But some things cannot be forgiven just by saying so. They hurt me too deeply. I won't force you. It's fine as long as you have your own thoughts. As long as you are doing well, that is enough for me. I lay on the earthen bed of the old house, just like when I was a child, but my state of mind was completely different. The insects outside were still as noisy as ever, yet I felt an extraordinary sense of peace. This is my only home. Grandpa is my only family. The others died to me long ago. In my senior year, I was recommended for admission to graduate school, staying at Bayan to pursue my master's. At the same time, I received internship offers from several renowned companies. Everything was moving in the right direction. On the day of the graduation ceremony, I stood at the school gate in my academic gown, asking my roommate to take a photo of me. The background was the plaque that read, Bayan University, exactly the same as 4 years ago when I first stood here. But I am no longer the person from 4 years ago, that broken, scarred youth.
I've grown taller.
Stronger, and the gloom in my eyes replaced by confidence. Those scars are still there, but they have already scabbed over, no longer bleeding, no longer in pain. It just reminds me of the path I once walked. Chun Yi put his arm around my shoulder.
Xiao Montak.
What are your plans for the future? Grad school first, then a job. And bring my grandfather here. Now that's a great plan. I'll treat you all to dinner then. No problem. That day, the 4 of us roommates drank heavily, talking about the past and the future, until we all passed out in the dorm. When I woke up the next day, my head was splitting, but my heart felt full, and just like that, youth slipped away. 4 years of college came to an end. Now a new journey begins. During my master's, I became even busier. Studies, research, internships. There was hardly any time to catch my breath, but I loved every second of it, because with every busy day, I moved further away from who I used to be. The winter of my second year, grandfather passed away, in his sleep. He went peacefully, without any pain. When the villagers called to tell me, I was in the lab conducting an experiment. The moment I heard the news, the test tube in my hand shattered on the floor. I took a leave of absence, and rushed back home overnight, pushing open the door of the old house. I saw the coffin in the main hall. Grandfather lay inside, wearing the navy blue cotton coat I bought him, with a faint, lingering smile on his face. I knelt before the coffin. I didn't cry out loud, but the tears wouldn't stop flowing. The elders called it a blessed passing, saying he lived over 80 years, with successful descendants, passing in peace. He was a fortunate man, but I didn't care about a blessed passing. I just wanted him to stay a few more years, until I started working, earned enough to bring him to the city, to eat the finest foods. I hadn't even had the chance to do anything. How could he just leave? The day of the funeral, under the falling snow, I took his ashes and buried them on the hill behind the old house, where you could see the whole village and that old locust tree. I stood before the grave for a long time, until the snow turned my shoulders white. I said, "Grandfather, wait for me. I will definitely make it big, and make you proud in heaven." The wind swept my words away, but I knew he must have heard me. After finishing the funeral arrangements, I returned to school, burying all the sorrow deep in my heart, studying and working with everything I had. I had to succeed. I had to make a name for myself. This was my promise to grandfather, and my accountability to myself. In my 3rd year, I graduated with honors, receiving offers from several top companies. Ultimately, I chose a tech giant, with a starting salary of $500,000. For a kid from the countryside, this was a number beyond my wildest dreams. On my first day of work, I stood beneath that grand office building, looking up at the blue sky, thinking, "Grandfather, I did it." I rented a 1-bedroom apartment. Clean and tidy, though it wasn't large. It was a place of my own. I placed grandfather's photo on my desk, looking at him every morning before leaving, saying good morning, and telling him everything that happened at night. Days like these were lonely, but felt secure. 3 years later, I bought a house in Bayan, a 30-year mortgage, monthly payments just over $10,000. The pressure was heavy, but I could bear it. The house wasn't big, 2 bedrooms and a living room, but for me it was more than enough. The day I moved into my new home, I stood by the window, watching the bustling streets below. Suddenly, I remembered years ago, that boy locked in the storage room. That boy could never have dreamed that one day he would own his own home in this city, have a decent job, have a few true friends, and have a brand new life. Fate dealt me the worst hand possible, but I fought tooth and nail to turn it into a winning one. That night, I drank alone, and spoke to my grandfather's photo. Grandpa, you were right. Education really is the only escape for a child born into poverty. I've finally broken free. The moonlight outside was brilliant, just as brilliant as that summer night years ago. The nights Grandpa sat under the old locust tree telling me stories. It feels as if it were only yesterday. Life continued in its quiet rhythm. Work was going well, occasional reunions with old roommates, a simple yet fulfilling existence. Until that day, the silence was shattered. It was a weekend in my 4th year of working. I was at home reading. When my phone rang, it was an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment, but I answered. The phone. On the other end was an elderly, unfamiliar woman. Are you Shen Mo? Yes, I am. May I ask who this is? I am your grandmother. The word grandmother felt so foreign to me, so foreign that I had almost forgotten that I even had a grandmother. Shen Mo, can you come to the hospital? Your mother. She's slipping away. I fell silent for a long time, saying nothing. My mind went completely blank. My grandmother's voice was choked with tears. She's on her last breath. She wants to see you one last time. What happened to her? Late-stage liver cancer. It had already spread by the time it was found. The doctor says she only has a few days. I leaned back on the sofa, staring at the ceiling, not knowing what to say. 7 years. Since that incident, I never saw them again. Not a single phone call. Not a single text message. I thought our paths would never cross again in this lifetime. I never imagined this would be the reason for our reunion. My grandmother waited on the other end. I could hear her suppressed sobbing. Send me the address. I hung up the phone. It wasn't forgiveness. I just wanted to put a period to the past. The next day, I took leave and drove to the hospital. It was a municipal hospital. I followed the address my grandmother sent and found the ward. The moment I pushed open the door, I followed the address my grandmother sent and found the ward. The moment I pushed open the door, I saw my mother lying on the hospital bed, emaciated beyond recognition, her complexion sallow, skin clinging to bone. Her hair was thin and gray. She was a world apart from the caustic woman. From 7 years ago, if my grandmother hadn't been there, I almost wouldn't have recognized her as the same person. Grandma saw me arrive, quickly stood up, clutching my hand, tears flowing uncontrollably. Shen Mo, you're here. It's good that you've come. She's been calling for you. I didn't speak. I just stood by the bed, looking down at the dying woman. My mother opened her eyes, her clouded gaze falling upon my face. Her lips trembled, letting out a faint sound. Tears suddenly welled up in her eyes, streaming down her shriveled cheeks. She tried to lift her hand, but had no strength, only trembling. I didn't respond. I just stood there, my heart strangely calm.
No hatred. No sorrow.
Only an indescribable numbness. My mother spoke intermittently, her voice sounding as if it were squeezed from her throat. Shen Mo, Mom is sorry. All these years, I've wanted to find you. I wanted to tell you I'm sorry. But I had no face to face you. She coughed a few times, her body curling into a ball. Grandma quickly stepped forward to pat her back. I stood aside and watched, still motionless. It took a long time for my mother to catch her breath. Then she continued, I've done many things wrong in my life. And the one I've wronged most is you. I was biased against you since you were small, leaving you abandoned in the countryside for your sister. And then, that incident, I was a monster. The more she spoke, the more agitated she became, her body shaking violently. Grandma cried out in desperation, telling him to stop talking.
Xiao Montak.
Can you forgive me? I know I don't deserve it, but I want to hear you call me Mom one last time before I die. I looked at her, looking at the woman who gave birth to me, but never loved me. Looking at her withered, haggard state. A complex surge of emotion suddenly rose within me. Hate? I did. Those nights locked in the storage room. Those days spent as an invisible person. The moments my dreams were torn apart by her own hands. Every scene is etched into my bones. But standing here now, looking at this woman on the brink of death, I realized that hatred had long since faded. Not forgiveness, but indifference. I don't hate you anymore. My mother froze, tears streaming down her face even harder. I continued, asking if I could call you Mom. I can't do it. All these years, there has never been a place for a mother in my heart. Only for Grandpa. My mother's body trembled violently, as if the last shred of her strength had been drained. She opened her mouth to say something, but only let out broken sobs. Shen Mo, just say it once, so she can pass in peace. I shook my head and turned to leave. As I reached the door, my mother's hoarse cries echoed behind me.
Xiao Montak. Xiao Montak.
I was wrong, I was truly wrong. The hallway was silent. I leaned against the wall, closing my eyes and taking a deep breath. My heart was racing, but there was no regret. I sat on a bench outside the hospital for a long time, watching people come and go. Some entered weeping, some left smiling. Birth, aging, sickness, and death. It's nothing more than that. My phone rang. It was Grandma. Shen Mo, don't blame me for asking you to come. Your mother really is at the end. I know what they did in the past was wrong, but she truly regrets it. She's been talking about you all these years. Your mother's illness is linked to the things she bottled up inside. After that incident back then, she never had a peaceful night's sleep. Your father lost his job, spending his days drowning in alcohol. Then the two of them fought every day. They divorced and your sister, Sai. In short, this family completely fell apart. What happened to Shen Qinghan? Don't even mention it, that child is ruined. That incident caused such a scandal. His mind suffered a shock. It got worse and worse. Now he's in a psychiatric hospital. His condition fluctuates. I felt nothing hearing this. Not exactly satisfaction, nor was it sympathy. I just felt that karma is simply like this.
Xiao Montak.
I know you hold a grudge, but your mother really only has a few days left. Can't you just go see her? Grandma. I came. I've seen her. That is all I can do. How can your heart be so cold, child? It's not that my heart is cold, it's that my heart was shattered by them long ago. You should ask them how they treated me back then. Fine, I won't force you. You have your own life. As long as you're doing well. After hanging up, I sat on the bench for a while longer. Then I got up and drove home. 3 days later, Grandma called again, telling me my mother had passed away. She was still whispering my name as she left. I listened and said, I see, and asked when the funeral would be. Grandma said the day after tomorrow. I told her I would be there. After hanging up, I stood by the window, looking at the night view outside. I couldn't describe the feeling in my heart. A slight tightness, but more than that, liberation. The woman who gave birth to me is dead, yet I feel no pain of losing a mother, only a sense that the dust has finally settled, like a book that has finally reached the last page. No matter how terrible the content was, at least it's over. On the day of the funeral, I went, standing in the crowd, looking at my mother's portrait. The way she looks in the photo is still the same as 7 years ago. Still the same as 7 years ago. She wasn't sick back then, with a cruel smile on her face. Not many people came, a few distant relatives, my grandmother and grandfather, and someone I never expected to see. My father had aged significantly. His hair was gray, his back hunched. He seemed to have shrunk in size. Standing in the funeral hall, dressed in mourning hemp. His expression was numb as he saw me arrive. His eyes flickered for a moment, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he said nothing. He just lowered his head and continued burning joss paper. I ignored him. I simply followed the ritual and lit the incense, bowed, then stepped back into the corner. Grandmother came over and took my hand. Shen Mo, it's enough that you've come. Your mother's soul can finally rest in peace. No more was said. After the funeral was over, the guests gradually departed. Only a few close relatives remained in the hall. Father was still kneeling there, burning paper, the firelight illuminating his aged face. I looked at his back, and suddenly he felt like a stranger. This is my father, the man who was once so high and mighty, the man who used to beat and kick me, the man who locked me in my room. Now he kneels here, like a stray dog. He probably felt my gaze, and turned around to look at me.
Xiao Montak.
I didn't respond. I just looked at him in silence. He stood up and walked toward me. His steps were unsteady. When he stood before me, I realized he smelled of alcohol.
Xiao Montak.
Dad, I'm sorry. All these years I've wanted to find you. I wanted to apologize, but I was too ashamed. Your mother is gone. I don't have many years left in this life. Can you forgive me? I looked at him, looking at the man I once hated to my core. Now he stands before me. You know what? When I was a child, there was one thing I couldn't understand. Why other parents cherish their children, while my parents treated me as a burden. Later I figured it out. It wasn't that I was flawed, it's that you weren't fit to be parents. You ask if I can forgive you. My answer was the same as what I told him. I don't hate you anymore, but I will never forgive you. Not even that. Father was stunned. His tears flowed even more violently. He reached out to grab my arm, but I dodged him, and from this day forward, we have no relationship. You live your life.
I live mine.
From birth to death, we have nothing to do with each other. This is the last time I will see you. With that, I turned and left, without looking back. Behind me came the sound of my father's wailing, and my grandmother's cries, but I turned a deaf ear. Step by step, I walked out of the funeral hall, out of this suffocating place. After getting in the car, I started the engine and drove onto the highway back to Bayan. The night was deep. There weren't many cars on the road. As I drove, my mind was racing with memories. Abandoned in the countryside at 12, treated as invisible for 6 years, locked in a room at 18. My admission notice torn to shreds by my own sister. These events played back in my mind like a movie. Now, at 29, I have a house, a car, and a career in the city, living a life I once wouldn't even dare to dream of. And them? Father lost his job. Destitute and broken. Mother died in misery. Shen Qinghan has gone mad. This family that once tried to crush me under their feet has completely fallen apart. This isn't my revenge. It is their own karma. Halfway through the drive, I pulled over at a service area. Standing in the night breeze, looking up at the starry sky, I suddenly thought of my grandfather, remembering him sitting under the old locust tree, telling me stories, remembering what he said. Education is the only way out for a child from a poor family. Grandpa, I've made it out. I've become the person you hoped I'd be. My eyes grew moist, but I didn't let the tears fall. I just took a deep breath, got back in the car and kept driving.
3 Uhr nachts.
I arrived home, took a shower, lay down in bed, watching the sky slowly brighten outside the window, feeling an unprecedented sense of relief in my heart. All those grudges and vendettas, all those entanglements of love and hate, from now on, none of it has anything to do with me. I can finally let go of the past completely and start a new life. A year later, I got promoted, became the youngest manager in the department. My salary doubled, I led the department, and my salary doubled. That same year, I met a girl. Her name was Xiao Wanner, a designer from the neighboring department. She was beautiful. When she smiled, her eyes curved like crescent moons. We met through a collaborative project and gradually became close. She knew about my past, knew those memories too painful to recall, but she didn't look at me with judgment. She just listened intently and then said one thing: "None of that was your fault. You've already done so well." In that moment, a corner of my heart felt as if it were finally filled. We got together, dated, moved in together, and then came the proposal. On the day I proposed, I took her to my hometown, to my grandfather's grave. I knelt before the grave, introducing her to my grandfather. "Grandpa, this is my girlfriend. Her name is Xiao Wan. She's a wonderful person. I want to marry her."
Xiao Wanner stood beside me,
her eyes rimmed with red. She also knelt and bowed 3 times to him. The wind was strong that day, rustling the wild grass before the grave. I felt as if Grandpa was responding to me, saying, "Good, good. Good. My grandson has finally made it." In the year I turned 32, we got married. The wedding was small. Only a few close family and friends were invited. My old roommates all came. Chen Yi even served as my best man. "Man, I'm truly happy for you. You finally made it through the struggle," I said with a smile. "Yeah, I finally made it." A year later, Xiao Wan became pregnant. 10 months later, our daughter was born. I named her Lin Cici, for longing and remembrance.